It's our yearly Northwestern State Football preview alongside the head coach, Blaine McCorkle. Appreciate you for having us in once again.
You bet. Always glad to have you.
Talk about now entering year 3. How have you seen this program change since when we first did this a couple of summers ago?
Yeah, it's not even the same program. It's really changed every day since we've been here, and we're really proud of the things that we've been able to get done. We haven't done it on the scoreboard yet. That hasn't quite turned where we wanted, but the scoreboard is getting closer. It did a few times last year, and we feel like we're definitely on track to get this thing where we want it to be, but it is a slow, steady climb for sure.
You talked about something at opening drive, how the first year you're just trying to find a place to put the foundation. Last year, you lay the foundation. What ideally does this season look like for you to continue that progression?
Yeah, hopefully some beams start going up.
Yeah.
Hopefully there's some carpentry going on, and you see things starting to come off the ground. And you're right. Year one here, there was no place to even put a foundation. You're right. We had to clear a lot of rubble out to nobody's fault, but everybody knows the situation. It was rare and unique. So that year is a little bit, I'm not going to say it's a wash, but it was a little bit of a wash. Then last year we were able to establish things about, an identity and who we are. And now I think we're in a spot culturally to really do some things and start building some things and let things carry over to the field a little more, which is what everybody really wants.
I was looking at your resume a little earlier. 2018, 2019, when you first started over at Belhaven.
Yeah, we're bad.
You were near the bottom of the conference both years, very few wins. Then that first year post-COVID, 7 wins, near the top of the conference. Do you kind of see a mirror of that as you begin now year 3 of this full season at Northwestern?
I do. I get asked that question a lot. What are the similarities? And it's very, very similar in terms of what we took over here culturally, minus shutting the program down. They hadn't shut the program down at Belhaven when we got there, but it wasn't far from it. Here they did, and that does add a completely different element to rebuilding. But the things that we've been able to do are very, very similar. I think the process here is probably a hair slower because of the shutdown, but we're definitely on the same track. And our staff, a lot of the staff and my GAs were all with me there at Belhaven. We're a part of that turnaround, and we talk about it all the time. And really, the best example is my graduate assistants, because they were players there, and they remember what it felt like, and they've kind of been coming up to me every day during training camp saying, Coach, is starting to feel more like right. What they mean is they're starting to experience and feel again what that turnaround felt like. So it's very encouraging to me.
Much more depth on this year's team. You talked a lot about competition, improving every spot on the roster, and how really no starting position is safe as a head coach, and having an experienced and returning staff. How important is it now to have a lot more options on the roster?
Yeah, well, I got asked after practice today about the competition and where it was, and it's really all 22 spots. There's not a safe position on the field, and we've never had that, including the kicker, the holder, and the snapper, and the punter. There's competition everywhere, and that for me, that's really exciting, because we're going to put the guys on the field that give us the best chance to win, and we haven't really been able to do that in the past. There's been guys that had to start kind of by default because there was nobody behind them. Now we've got a lot of guys who've played a lot of football who are fighting for their life to stay on the field, and that's really, really encouraging.
The NCAA is now going through this new process of 5-5, and it's advantageous, in my opinion, for you guys, because you still have maybe one of the youngest rosters in the entire sport of college football. What is your stance on that, and having so many guys who have 3 or 4 years of eligibility left?
So we still have an NCAA?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, the 5 for 5, I like that rule. I do think that's a good rule. That's one that the NCAA definitely got right there for sure. And with us, there's probably 5 or 6 guys who gained a year back, which is good, because really in theory what that did is to make us even younger. Last year we talked a lot about having the youngest team in the country, which we did. Mathematically we did. In theory, this year by numbers we're actually younger, but they've played a lot of football. So, last year we were about 65 guys that were freshmen, redshirt freshmen, or sophomores. And now we've got 71 players with 3 years or more eligibility, which is kind of that redshirt sophomore or younger. So we actually have more guys in that category, but they've played a lot of football. Like Abram Johnston is in theory by the old model, a redshirt sophomore, and he's already started, 15 games.
For the second straight year, you'll open up on Thursday night on this home field, and you get to take on another local team in Louisiana Christian. We did the story first time you're playing them since 1968. What are you looking forward to most about that game?
Yeah, that's exciting, and I think it's great to play in-state opponents and play teams from different levels, and that gives those guys an opportunity to see what they can do, playing against an FCS opponent. I know they'll be excited and fired up, ready to play. Ben's got a great program down there. He does a really good job. They've run their conference championship 2 of the last 3 years, and peeking metal and film a little bit. They've got some talent at the skill positions, and they actually played McNeese closer than we did last year. So I expect it to be a football game. I expect it to be a 4-quarter game, and that's what we got to prepare for, because we haven't earned the right to look at any game any other way.
What's your message to the fan base and the community here who've been backing you guys for a couple of years and now are waiting for something to really be excited about? What can you tell them?
Well, I know they're tired of waiting. I'm tired of waiting. We all are. It's time to do something on the field and put out a product on the scoreboard that matches it, and just keep hanging in there with us, because we believe it's coming. We believe it's time. We've spent 2 years working really, really hard to get to this point, and now it's time to start flipping some close games on the scoreboard. Last year we had 3 games that really came down to the last possession that we weren't able to flip, and I think we've grown so much as a program since last year that I tell our guys all the time, if we had 3 of those games last year, we've got to anticipate 6 or 8 of those this year and be mature enough to flip them. And I think it's going to be a really, really exciting year for us.